So this is the Game Boy Advance SP. This one in particular is quite beat up, as you can tell. This is actually not my original Game Boy Advance SP. I used to own a silver one growing up, but then in high school I decided to give it away to one of my old friends, someone I don't even know anymore, and along with a bunch of games, including some bangers like Pokemon Emerald and a Mega Man Battle Network games and a bunch of good games. And yeah, I regret that decision a lot. So this Game Boy Advance SP in particular, I bought back in college when I decided I wanted to start playing my old games again, and now I'm just kind of rebuilding my collection, and it's taken me a while because games are expensive now. Now this is not a Game Boy Advance SP. Now, I know how you'd be easily fooled because they look really similar, but no, this is the Anbernic RG35XXSP. The Anbernic RG35XXSP has been a console that I've been really looking forward to getting. The main reason has to do with nostalgia. I mean, the Game Boy Advance SP was the most defining console of my childhood gaming experience, like, ever. I actually never owned the Game Boy Advance original, I just went straight to the SP. I mean, my favorite games of all time were Game Boy Advance games that I played on this SP, like Pokemon Emerald, Pokemon Sapphire, Mega Man Battle Network, Golden Sun, Sonic Advance. I mean, there's so many of them. I was also excited because we've been getting a lot of the same kind of similar retro handhelds lately, and this seems kind of like a breath of fresh air in terms of new retro handhelds. There's a lot of hype around this console in particular, and rightly so for the reasons I just mentioned. And I gotta admit, I really like it. Really like it. And I'm gonna be playing it a lot, and I'm probably gonna be posting a follow-up video to this one after I've put in around 100 hours of gameplay into it. Now, I gotta admit, if I'm gonna be completely honest, there are a few things I'm a little bit disappointed about, and maybe it's unfair because I'm being a little bit critical since I set such a high bar for this device. But anyway, let me know what you think in the comments below. Let's go over to my desk now, though, and take a closer look at the console. Let's first compare the RG35XXSP to the original Game Boy Advance SP. But first, quick note, if you like this video, please do me a favor and like it on YouTube, as well as subscribe. It's free for you, but really means the world to me. Right off the bat, you'll notice that the Anbernic SP is bigger in all dimensions and thicker. On the right side of the original SP, we have our power switch, while on the Anbernic SP, they opted for a power button there, and they also put the reset button there. On the bottom of the Game Boy Advance SP, you obviously have your cart slot, and on the Anbernic, they put their SD slots there. There's one micro SD slot for the operating system, plus games, and then you have an optional SD slot for more games if you need more games. The 35XXSP also has a headphone jack, which was not included in the original Game Boy Advance. On the left side, we have volume buttons. The original SP had a volume slider. On top, the Anbernic SP has an HDMI out as well as a charging port, two sets of shoulder buttons. The original has a charging port, a link cable port, and one set of shoulder buttons. On the bottom, both devices have a compartment where the battery is housed. Before getting into the inside of the device, I wanted to point out some attention to detail with Anbernic on this device. They really worked on replicating the original GBA SP. I mean, the buttons are all on the same corresponding sides. Sure, they're not exactly the same kinds of buttons, but they do the same function. Even things like using the same style shoulder buttons, having power ports on the same place. The SD card on the same side as the game cart should be on the original SP. They even made the same kind of battery compartment on the back. Anyway, I like the attention to detail and trying to recreate that nostalgia as much as possible, all for an affordable price, honestly. Opening the clamshell, again, a lot of attention to detail here. The hinge is almost exactly the same as the original. The screen even stops in the same ideal viewing angle. As far as the movement of opening the clamshell goes, both of these hinges feel the same. However, when closing the console, it doesn't give me that same satisfying clap that the original SP does. You see, when you close the original SP, it'll kind of lock in place with this nice sturdy close. The RG35XXSP, however, will kind of gently close, making it feel a little bit too loose for my comfort. It won't open on its own unless you really tug it, but nonetheless, this is one of my few critiques on the device. On the inside again, Anbernic wanted to give you that Game Boy Advance SP feel as much as possible. All the buttons are in the same places. They even put the menu button where the light button is on the GBSP. The speakers even have that similar dot structure with the larger holes in the middle surrounded by the smaller ones. And you even have the same kind of indicator lights for power and charging on the right side here. They even went as far as to give us those same little pads here on the top screen as you see with the original SP. You'll also notice that when I show my gameplay footage that for Game Boy Advance games, they put on this filter that has this little Game Boy Advance SP logo on the bottom here to make it resemble the original Game Boy Advance SP. And it just makes games look amazing. Anyway, Anbernic did an excellent job on the design here. Do I wish the closing process was a little bit better? Sure. Do I wish that was a little bit more compact? Yes. But I'll take what I can get for the price point. Overall, I commend Anbernic for making such a nice Game Boy Advance SP replica. There is one thing I should mention though, and that is all the face buttons are clicky. Like, really clicky. Like, I feel like my fingers are tap dancing when I play on this thing. This is a bit of a problem if you want to play somewhere quiet, like, in your bed when your partner is near you at night, or in a library if people still go to those. And, why are you playing a Game Boy Advance SP in a library? I don't know, but to each their own. Retro Game Core modded this to fix this problem, but if you aren't into taking your device apart, this might not be an option for you. As far as the actual specs for the Anbernic RG35XXSP, it uses the same chipset that we're seeing with the other XX models, the All-Winner H700 and Mali GPU with 1GB of RAM. It also has a 3300 milliamp battery. This will let you play Dreamcast and PS1 really well, and it'll also let you play N64 and PSP pretty decently well, depending on the game. I decided to test out this device on the stock firmware. This is because I had such a good experience with the RG28XX stock firmware, and it's more or less the same device, just, looks different. People online also said the stock was fine, so I'm rolling with it. I'm seeing more videos of other operating systems that you can install on this device and with some promising features. And in the future, I'll most likely test those out, and when I do, I'll make sure to share my thoughts. Eventually, I plan on posting a 100-hour review on this device. For those of you unfamiliar with my channel, that's when I actually game on the console for 100 or more hours over the course of a couple months, just to give you an idea of what it's like to own this device and put a lot of wear and tear into it. So if you want a device that you can purchase and start playing without any setup, you'll be pleased to know that the RG35XXSP can do just that. When I first booted up the Anbernic SP, there were a couple housekeeping items to take care of. First of all, heading over to the settings, you want to change the lock screen option to never, or at least 10 minutes, because by default it's set to like a 1 minute, and that's just way too short. You can't even put the device down for, a minute. Next, I set up my Wi-Fi network because I'm planning on playing this device with retro achievements turned on because I love retro achievements, and you need Wi-Fi for that. Next, I set up the auto shutdown. To do that, head over to the App Center, then click Apps. Select the first SD card if you have two, otherwise just click the one that's there. Then click on the auto shutdown set. Once this boots up, you'll have the option to enable auto shutdown. What that means is that when you press the power button, the device will create a save state for you, shut down the console, and then when you boot it back up, you'll just go right back to where you left off. After you select that, you'll have the option to enable quick shutdown when you close the clamshell. Personally, I kept it so that when I closed the clamshell, it actually just put the device into sleep instead of doing the auto shutdown. The sleep mode on the RG35XXSP is actually not too bad, unlike other handhelds. Yeah, it still drains the battery a bit, but if you're good about charging it regularly, it's fine. Part of the reason why I'd rather use sleep mode than quick shutdown is due to me playing retro achievements on hardcore mode, because if you do quick shutdown, what happens is it'll create a save state, shut down, but then when you boot back up, hardcore mode doesn't let you load save states, so it just puts you back at the title screen. Plus, it disconnects you from the internet, so if you want to get retro achievements working again, you'll have to turn off the game anyway and boot it back up. The regular sleep mode doesn't do this. So I'm playing for a few hours, I'll just leave it in sleep mode whenever I go to the bathroom or walk the dog or something. I'm fine with the battery draining a bit. Then when I'm done for the day, I'll just do a full shutdown at that point. This is the unfortunate position I put myself in for retro achievements. If you don't care about retro achievements, the auto shutdown feature is super convenient. And that's pretty much it for my setup as for now. The console I bought came loaded with a ton of ROMs already, so I didn't even have to copy over my own. Again, in the future, I might update my OS. It may look nicer and it may function better at that point. But if you want to play right now, the stock OS runs totally fine. I would just go ahead and play with it. Retro games look amazing on this device. I mean, most do for this particular kind of screen, but Anbernic put some really nice borders and shaders to make them look even better. The best example of this is Gameboy Advance. Not only does it look really nice with this LCD kind of looking display that makes it look like a real Game Boy Advance game, but they also put this border on the bottom with the Game Boy Advance SP logo to make it look like a real Game Boy Advance. I mean, how cool is that? In my opinion, this device was really made for Game Boy Advance, so if you're a Game Boy Advance fan, you'll feel right at home. Everything from the design to the shader they put in the games, this device screams Game Boy Advance SP nostalgia. And I'm all for it. I'm going to be playing a lot of Game Boy Advance SP on this bad boy. Thanks to the chipset on this device, you can play a lot of 3D consoles as well. N64 is going to be a hit or miss depending on the game. PSP is kind of a hit or miss depending on the game, but probably better than N64. PS1 and Dreamcast play great. A quick note here, since there's only one D-pad, you'll need to switch between the D-pad and analog controls. You can do this by tapping the power button during these games to switch the controls. It's pretty crazy feeling playing 3D games on an SP looking device, not gonna lie. But that being said, to me the ability to play N64, PS1, PSP, and Dreamcast doesn't really matter. That's because I don't want to play 3D games on this device for the most part. I want to play the 2D classics that I grew up with, and that's what the Anbernic RG35XXSP, holy cow, I'm really tired of saying that at this point. That's what it's best for. If you want 3D games, get something like a Retroid Pocket 4 Pro and plug it into your TV. Or heck, at least plug your Anbernic SP into your TV, which you can do by the way. The true retro games feel right at home on the 35XXSP. Anbernic set up this device so we can get that authentic retro feeling kind of gameplay with their classics so that you can just spend hours and hours of your time playing the old games you love. Speaking of playing for hours, Anbernic's SP is really comfortable. I mean, no surprise, the original SP was super comfortable in my opinion as well, and conducive to playing for long hours of game sessions. That's no different with this device. I can play several hours easily without feeling like my hands are cramping up. Just need to deal with that annoying clicking sound. Seriously, this retro handheld would have been perfect if it wasn't for this freaking clickiness. Anyway, you did good here, Anbernic. You did good. If you love the Game Boy Advance SP and you love retro games, you can't go wrong with this device. I know we're only halfway through the year, but this will probably be on my top 5, if not my top 3 handhelds. Only time will tell. The stock OS runs well enough that I don't think you need to wait for updates. You can just start playing and relive those Game Boy Advance nostalgia. Anyway, thanks for watching. Please hit that like and subscribe. I'm going to put in 100 or so hours of gaming in the device, and I'll follow up with another, even more in-depth review with my thoughts on everything I learned from now until then. So subscribe and put that notifications on, and this way you'll know when that video comes out. Anyway, have a good day. I'll see you on the flippity flop. See ya.